The key turned in the lock, but Marcus Brennan hesitated before pushing the door open. The mansion stood silent before him, its windows dark except for a single light in the kitchen. 11:45 at night. Again. He loosened his tie and stepped inside, briefcase in hand, expensive shoes clicking against marble floors that echoed through empty hallways. The house felt wrong. It had felt wrong for months now, but Marcus couldn't name the feeling. Something hollow lived in these rooms, something that made his chest tight whenever he stood in the foyer and listened to the silence pressing down from the floors above. Upstairs, his daughter slept. At least, he assumed she slept. Lily, 7 years old today, her birthday. Marcus had missed it. Again. A meeting ran late, a crisis with the investors. The usual excuses that sounded reasonable in the boardroom but hollow as hell, standing here in the dark. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step a small betrayal of a promise he'd made 2 years ago. The promise echoed in his head every night. Eleanor's voice, weak but fierce, in that hospital room with its antiseptic smell and machines that beeped like countdown timers. Promise me, Marcus. Promise me you'll protect our little girl. Don't let work steal you from her like it stole you from me. He had held her hand, felt how thin it had become, how the bones stood out sharp beneath papery skin. Cancer had eaten everything soft about her, left only the essential framework and those eyes that still burned with maternal fire. I promise, I swear on my life. Eleanor had smiled then, that sad smile of someone who knows promises are just words that people mean in the moment. She died 6 hours later. Lily had been 5 years old enough to understand that mommy was gone, too young to understand that gone meant forever. Now Marcus stood outside Lily's bedroom door. He pushed it open slowly, careful not to wake her. The nightlight cast soft pink shadows across the room. Lily lay curled on her side, one arm wrapped around a teddy bear that was missing an eye. Eleanor had given her that bear. It was worn thin now, loved nearly to death. Marcus stepped closer and his breath caught in his throat. Even in sleep, Lily's face looked tense. Her small hands gripped the blanket so tight her knuckles showed white. Her lips moved, forming silent words. Dreaming, but not good dreams, Marcus thought. Not the kind of dreams a 7-year-old should have. He reached out to smooth her hair, then stopped. When had he last done that? When had he last tucked her in, read her a story, done any of the things fathers are supposed to do? The realization hit him like a fist to the gut. He couldn't remember. Days blurred into weeks. He came home late, left early, saw Lily for maybe 10 minutes at breakfast before rushing to the office. But she was fine, wasn't she? Cassandra took care of everything. Cassandra, who had appeared in his life like an answer to prayers he hadn't known he was praying. Beautiful, competent, kind. She had transformed the chaos of single parenthood into something manageable. She had made everything seem okay. Marcus backed out of the room quietly, pulling the door shut. He should sleep. Another long day tomorrow. Always another long day. He didn't see Lily's eyes open in the darkness behind him. Didn't see the fear that flickered across her small face. Didn't hear the way her breathing quickened, or see how she pulled the threadbare teddy bear closer, burying her face in its worn fur. 3 months earlier, the story had been different. Marcus stood in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, a glass of whiskey in his hand that he wasn't really drinking. The charity gala hummed around him with the sound of money and good intentions mixing in equal measure. Businessmen in expensive suits, women in designer gowns, everyone performing the ritual dance of networking while pretending to care about the cause. Tonight it was homeless shelters. Next month it would be something else. The cause changed, the people stayed the same. He'd been coming to these things alone since Eleanor died. People had tried to set him up, of course. Well-meaning friends who knew some wonderful woman who was also recently widowed or divorced. Marcus had smiled politely and declined every time. The idea of replacing Eleanor felt like betrayal, even though he knew she would have wanted him to be happy, especially wanted him to be happy. That was the kind of person she'd been. Mr. Brennan? The voice came from his left, smooth and cultured. Marcus turned to find a woman standing a respectful distance away, holding a glass of white wine. She was striking. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist, wearing a black dress that was sophisticated without being showy. But it was her eyes that caught his attention. Warm, intelligent, the kind of eyes that suggested she actually listened when people spoke. I'm Cassandra Vale. I hope you don't mind the interruption. I've been reading about your work with the Brennan Foundation, the Affordable Housing Initiative for Veterans. It's remarkable. Marcus blinked, surprise. Most people at these events knew him as the CEO of Brennan Properties, the guy with money. Few bothered to learn about the quieter work, the foundation Eleanor had started before she got sick. Thank you, that's kind of you to say. I mean it. My father was a veteran, Vietnam. He struggled for years to find stable housing after he came home. Cassandra's expression softened with what looked like genuine emotion. What you're doing makes a real difference. They talked for an hour, then two. Marcus found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. Cassandra knew when to laugh, when to be serious, when to let silence sit comfortably between them. She asked about Lily with what seemed like real interest. She mentioned, almost offhandedly, that she worked in nonprofit management, that she understood the weight of responsibility that came with trying to do good in a world that made it hard. By the end of the night, Marcus had her number in his phone and something that felt dangerously like hope stirring in his chest. 3 months of courtship followed. Dinners at quiet restaurants, walks through Central Park, Cassandra meeting Lily for the first time at an ice cream shop, making the girl laugh with a funny story about a dog she'd had as a child. Everything felt natural, easy, right. When Cassandra suggested moving in, Marcus barely hesitated. Lily needed a mother figure. He needed a partner. The house needed life breathed back into its empty rooms. It all made sense. The first month was everything Marcus had hoped for. Cassandra transformed the house. Fresh flowers appeared in vases. Home-cooked meals replaced takeout. She organized Lily's schedule, making sure the girl got to school on time, had healthy lunches packed, did her homework. Marcus felt the weight lift from his shoulders. He could focus on work knowing his daughter was being cared for. Everything was under control. He didn't notice the small changes in Lily, how she spoke less, how she stopped running to greet him when he came home, how she began to flinch slightly when Cassandra touched her shoulder. These were subtle shifts, the kind that happen slowly enough that you don't see them happening at all. It was Lily's 7th birthday party when Marcus first felt something was wrong. Cassandra had insisted on throwing a big celebration. The living room exploded with pink and white balloons. A 3-tier cake sat on the dining room table, decorated with unicorns and rainbows. Presents stacked in the corner. It should have been perfect. Lily stood in the center of it all, wearing a new dress Cassandra had bought, her hair in ribbons. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Marcus saw it, but didn't understand it. 7-year-olds should be thrilled by birthday parties. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was overwhelmed by the attention. Cassandra swept in with the cake, candles blazing. Everyone sang. Lily blew out the candles with mechanical precision, no joy on her face, just careful obedience. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Cassandra said, her voice dripping honey. Lily nodded but said nothing. Marcus stepped forward. "What did you wish for, Lily Bug?" The old nickname, one Eleanor used to use. Lily's eyes flickered to his face, something desperate swimming in their depths. Her mouth opened. Then her gaze shifted to Cassandra standing behind Marcus, and whatever Lily had been about to say died on her lips. "Nothing, Daddy, just kid stuff." The party continued. Presents were opened. Cake was eaten. Photos were taken. To anyone watching, it was a perfect celebration. But something nagged at Marcus. Something in the way Lily's hands trembled slightly when Cassandra touched her. Something in how still the girl held herself, like a rabbit trying not to attract a predator's attention. Marcus went to the bathroom, needing a moment away from the noise and forced cheer. When he returned 5 minutes later, he paused in the doorway. Cassandra stood with Lily by the present table. Her hand rested on the girl's shoulder, but her fingers dug in hard enough that Lily's face went tight with pain. Cassandra leaned down, mouth close to Lily's ear, whispering something Marcus couldn't hear. Then Cassandra straightened, smiled back in place, as if nothing had happened. But Marcus had seen the look on Lily's face. Fear. Pure animal fear. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked, stepping into the room. Cassandra turned, all warmth and light. "Of course, honey." Lily was just getting emotional, thinking about her mom on her birthday. "Natural, isn't it? Eleanor should be here. The words were perfect, sympathetic, understanding. But something in Marcus's gut twisted. He looked at Lily. She stood rigid, arms at her sides, staring at the floor. Lily, you okay, baby? She nodded without looking up. Yes, Daddy. Just sad about Mommy. The explanation made sense. It should have satisfied him. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd walked in on something he wasn't supposed to see. The feeling faded over the next few days. Work demanded his attention. A major deal was closing. He worked late every night that week, getting home after Lily was already in bed. By the time the weekend came, the birthday party felt like a distant memory. He didn't know that Lily cried herself to sleep every night that week. Didn't know about the dark room in the basement. Didn't know that Cassandra's mask only stayed on when he was watching. Grace Martinez had been the housekeeper for the Brennan family for 12 years. She'd watched Lily be born, had held Eleanor's hand during the last terrible weeks of illness, had sobbed at the funeral. This house was more than a job to her. These people were family, which made what was happening now all the more heartbreaking. Grace stood outside Lily's bedroom, dustcloth in hand, listening. Inside, she could hear Lily talking quietly to herself. Playing, maybe, but the tone was all wrong. There was no joy in it, no childish imagination, just a flat recitation, like someone going through motions they'd learned by rote. Grace pushed the door open gently. Miss Lily, I'm just going to tidy up a bit, if that's all right. Lily sat on the floor by her bed, not playing with toys, just sitting. She looked up when Grace entered, and the expression on her face made the older woman's heart crack. This wasn't the bright, laughing child she'd known. This was someone who had learned to make herself small. Of course, Miss Grace. Even Lily's voice had changed. Quiet, careful. The voice of someone who'd learned that speaking up had consequences. Grace began straightening the room, making it last longer than necessary. She wanted to talk to Lily, to ask if everything was okay, but fear kept her silent. Not fear for herself, fear for what might happen if she interfered and things got worse. As she cleaned, Grace noticed things. A stuffed rabbit shoved under the bed, its ear torn. Lily used to carry that rabbit everywhere. Now it was hidden, forgotten. Drawings scattered on the desk. Grace picked one up. A house drawn in black crayon with all the windows colored dark. No sun, no flowers, just black. That's an interesting picture, honey, Grace said carefully. Lily glanced up, then away quickly. Miss Cassandra says I should draw prettier things, happy things. What do you want to draw? The question seemed to confuse Lily. She tilted her head, thinking. I don't know anymore. Grace's hands stilled on the bookshelf she was dusting. That answer was wrong in ways she couldn't quite articulate. 7-year-olds knew what they wanted. They were loud about it. Lily's uncertainty felt learned. Beaten in. Grace finished the room and moved to leave, but something made her pause. She knelt down next to Lily, meeting the girl's eyes. Sweetheart, if you ever need to talk to someone about anything, you know you can talk to me, right? Lily's eyes widened. For just a moment, Grace saw hope flash across the small face. The girl's mouth opened. Then footsteps sounded in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate. Lily's expression shut down like a light going out. She looked away, shoulders hunching. Yes, Miss Grace, thank you. The footsteps passed. Ethan Vale, Cassandra's cousin, walked by the open door. He glanced in, his cold eyes sweeping the room, landing on Grace. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Just acknowledgement, a reminder that he was watching. Grace stood quickly, grabbed her cleaning supplies, and hurried out. In the hallway, her hands shook. She wanted to march downstairs and tell Marcus everything. Tell him his daughter was suffering. Tell him the woman he'd brought into their home was poison. But she couldn't, because 2 days ago, Ethan had cornered her in the kitchen. Had mentioned her granddaughter Sophia, 9 years old, who needed heart surgery. Complicated surgery. Expensive surgery. $100,000 expensive. Sophia was Grace's whole world, her daughter's only child. The surgery was scheduled for next month at Mount Sinai. Dr. Rodriguez, everything arranged. Ethan had smiled that same cold smile and said, remarkable modern medicine. Though sometimes there are complications, unexpected delays, insurance issues. A shame when that happens to children. The threat couldn't have been clearer. Stay silent, or Sophia's surgery would vanish. Or worse, Grace had nodded, hating herself, and agreed to keep her mouth shut. Now she walked downstairs with that agreement sitting in her stomach like a stone. Behind her, Lily sat alone in her room, and Grace felt the weight of her own cowardice crushing down. In the kitchen, Grace paused at the counter, steadying herself. She needed to hold it together. Just a few more weeks until Sophia's surgery. Then maybe she could figure out what to do. Maybe then she could help Lily. Maybe. She opened a drawer to put away the dust cloth and froze. There, tucked beneath the kitchen towels, was a small shoebox. Grace recognized it. Lily's box, where she kept special things. Drawings, ribbons, little treasures. Grace glanced around. The house was quiet. Cassandra was out shopping. Marcus was at work. Ethan was in the study. She pulled out the box and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were letters, 7 of them. Each one folded carefully, each one addressed to Daddy in Lily's careful handwriting. Grace's throat tightened. She picked up the first one and read, "Dear Daddy, I miss you. Miss Cassandra said I can't bother you anymore. She said you're too busy for me now. Am I a bad girl? Love, Lily." Grace pressed her hand to her fighting back tears. She read the second letter. "Daddy, I'm scared of the dark room. It's cold and I hear rats. Can I sleep in your room tonight? Please, Lily." The third letter made Grace's vision blur with tears. "Daddy, Miss Cassandra locks me in when I cry. She says crying is for babies. I try not to cry, but I miss Mommy so much. Do you miss her too? I love you, Lily. P.S. I'm sorry I'm not a good girl." Grace stood there with the letters in her shaking hands, each one a small cry for help that had never been sent. Lily had written these, poured her heart into them, but never given them to her father. Why? Because she was afraid. Because someone had taught her that speaking up meant punishment. "Mrs. Martinez." Grace jumped, dropping the letters. She spun around to find Ethan standing in the kitchen doorway. How long had he been there? How much had he seen? Ethan walked forward slowly, his eyes locked on the scattered letters. He bent down, picked them up one by one, reading each with an expression of casual interest. Grace's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "These are private," Ethan said quietly. "Don't you think?" "I was just cleaning. I didn't mean to—" "You're a terrible liar, Mrs. Martinez." Ethan straightened, holding the letters. "You read them, all of them, and now you're thinking about doing something stupid. Like telling Mr. Brennan." Grace said nothing. Her throat had closed with fear. Ethan stepped closer, close enough that Grace could smell his cologne. Expensive, sharp. "Let me remind you of something. Sophia, sweet girl, weak heart, surgery scheduled. Everything ready?" He paused, letting the words sink in. "But things can change. Suddenly, a hospital can discover a patient's insurance doesn't cover what they thought. A surgeon can find an unexpected conflict in his schedule. Complications arise. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Please," Grace whispered. "She's just a child. Sophia is just a child." "So is Lily, but you were about to make a choice, weren't you? Your grandchild or Mr. Brennan's child?" Ethan's smile was reptilian. "I'm just clarifying the stakes." He held up the letters. Then methodically he began tearing them, one by one. Each rip deliberate, final. The pieces fluttered to the kitchen floor like snow. Grace watched, tears running down her face as 7 cries for help were destroyed. "You're a smart woman," Ethan said when he finished. "Smart women know when to keep their mouths shut. For everyone's sake." He walked out. Grace stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by torn paper, her granddaughter's face burning in her mind. She had made her choice. God forgive her. She had chosen Sophia over Lily, and she would have to live with that. Ben Parker had been Marcus Brennan's driver for 15 years. Before that, they'd served together, briefly, in the same National Guard unit. When Marcus's company took off, one of his first calls had been to Ben. "I need someone I can trust, someone who has my back." Ben had said yes without hesitation. That bond, forged in shared experience, ran deep, which was why Ben knew beyond any doubt that something was very wrong in the Brennan household. He noticed the small things first. How Lily no longer ran to the car when it was time to go somewhere. How she moved slowly now, carefully, like someone expecting a blow. How she flinched when Cassandra called her name. Ben had two daughters of his own, grown now with kids of their own. He knew what happy children looked like. Lily wasn't happy. Lily was afraid. He tried to talk to Marcus about it, but the timing was never right. Marcus was always rushing to meetings, taking calls, buried in work. The man had built walls around himself since Eleanor died, and those walls were hard to breach. Ben couldn't just blurt out, "I think your girlfriend is abusing your daughter." Not without proof, not without something concrete. So Ben started paying attention, really paying attention. He saw Cassandra's face change when she thought no one was watching. The warmth would drain out like water from a sink, leaving something cold and calculating behind. He saw how Ethan followed Grace around, always watching, always present. He saw Lily shrink into herself a little more each day. Ben decided to do something about it. He bought a small recording device, the kind private investigators used. Not exactly legal, but Ben's conscience was clear. If he was wrong, he'd apologize and move on. But if he was right, he needed proof that couldn't be denied. The opportunity came late one night. Ben was finishing some paperwork in the garage apartment above where the cars were kept. The apartment was small, just a kitchenette and bedroom, but it gave him a view of the backyard. Most nights it was just darkness and silence. Tonight was different. At 1 in the morning, Ben saw a figure walk out into the garden. Cassandra, wrapped in a robe, cell phone pressed to her ear. She moved to the far corner of the yard, away from the house, away from windows. Ben's instincts, honed by years of watching people, went on alert. He grabbed his phone, activated the recording app, and quietly made his way down the stairs. The garage sat at the edge of the property. If he stayed in the shadows, he could get close enough to hear without being seen. Cassandra stood under a tree, her back to him. Ben crept closer, phone held out, praying the app was picking up her voice. "Vincent, it's me." Ben froze. Vincent? Who the hell was Vincent? "Yes, everything is proceeding perfectly. The child is breaking down nicely. She barely speaks anymore. Completely withdrawn." Ben's blood went cold. She was talking about Lily. Had to be. "Marcus?" Cassandra laughed, low and cruel. "He's oblivious, so consumed with guilt and work that he doesn't see what's happening under his own roof. It's almost pathetic." Another pause. Ben's hands shook, but he kept the phone steady. "Stock price is down 12%. Your inside information about the company's problems is working. The board is starting to question his leadership." Another pause. "How much longer?" "Vincent, I've been at this for 3 months. The kid is already a shell. What more do you want?" Ben's mind raced. Stock manipulation. Inside trading. This was bigger than just abuse. This was a coordinated attack on Marcus. "But why?" "Fine, a few more weeks, but then we move to phase 3. I want what you promised me." Cassandra's voice hardened. "And what about the child after we're done? We can't just leave her as a witness." Ben's stomach dropped through the ground. Were they planning to kill Lily? "We'll discuss it later. Just keep doing what you're doing. Break the man's spirit. Break his daughter. Then we take everything." The call ended. Cassandra stood for a moment, looking up at the stars, a small smile on her face. Then she turned and walked back to the house. Ben waited until she was inside before moving. His legs felt like rubber. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He looked down at his phone. The recording was there. 11 minutes of Cassandra condemning herself. But what now? He couldn't go to Marcus without more context. Who was Vincent? What was the larger plan? And most urgently, how did he protect Lily until he figured this out? Ben made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd install hidden cameras. Small ones, easy to hide. He'd document what was really happening in that house. Then when he had everything, he'd go to Marcus with proof that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. He just prayed that tomorrow wouldn't be too late. The next morning, Marcus came down for breakfast at 7:30, already dressed in his suit, mind churning with the day's problems. The Cleveland deal was falling apart. The board was restless. Profits were down. He grabbed coffee from the pot Cassandra had made, scrolling through emails on his phone. "Morning, honey." Cassandra emerged from the kitchen, perfectly put together despite the early hour. She kissed his cheek and set a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. The domestic scene was so normal, so perfect, that Marcus felt his tension ease slightly. "Morning, you're up early. I wanted to make sure you had a good breakfast. You've been working so hard lately." She smiled, and it looked genuine. Marcus felt a flash of gratitude. At least someone was looking out for him. "Where's Lily?" "Getting dressed for school. She'll be down in a minute." Marcus nodded, already half focused on an email from his CFO. Numbers scrolled across the screen. None of them good. He ate mechanically, tasting nothing, his mind in a dozen different places. Footsteps on the stairs. Lily appeared in the doorway, backpack on, hair neatly braided. She looked small in her school uniform, smaller than she should. "Morning, Daddy." Marcus glanced up. "Morning, Lilybug. Ready for school?" She nodded, no smile. Just that careful, neutral expression she'd been wearing lately. Marcus frowned. When had his daughter stopped smiling? "Come give Daddy a hug before you go." Lily walked over, moving stiffly, and let Marcus hug her. But she didn't hug back, just stood there, tolerating the embrace. Marcus pulled back, disturbed by the lack of response. "You okay, kiddo?" "Yes, Daddy." "School going all right?" "Yes, Daddy." The responses were automatic, programmed. Marcus looked at Cassandra, who was watching with an expression of mild concern. "She's been a little withdrawn lately," Cassandra said quietly. "I think she's still processing grief. Eleanor's birthday is coming up next week. Maybe that's weighing on her." The explanation made sense. Grief did strange things to people, and Lily was still so young. Of course she'd struggle. Marcus made a mental note to spend more time with her, maybe take her out for ice cream this weekend. Do something special. His phone buzzed, the CFO calling. Marcus glanced at the time. 7:45. He needed to leave. "I'm sorry, Lily, Daddy has to run, but we'll do something fun this weekend, okay? Just you and me." Lily nodded, that same blank expression. Marcus kissed the top of her head, grabbed his briefcase, and headed for the door. Behind him, he didn't see Cassandra's hand settle on Lily's shoulder. Didn't see the way the girl tensed. Didn't see the fear flicker across her small face. The day blurred past in meetings and phone calls. Marcus lived on coffee and adrenaline, putting out fires, making decisions, keeping the company afloat. By 6 in the evening, he'd been in the office for 10 hours straight and had a pounding headache. His secretary knocked on the door. "Mr. Brennan, your driver's here. He says it's important." Marcus looked up, surprised. Ben wouldn't interrupt unless something was seriously wrong. "Send him in." Ben entered, looking uncomfortable in the sterile office environment. He held a tablet in his hands, expression grim. "Sir, I need to show you something. It's about Miss Lily." Marcus's headache intensified. "What about her?" Ben hesitated, then held out the tablet. "I've been worried for a while about how quiet she's gotten, how different she seems, so I started paying attention. And last night I recorded something you need to hear." Marcus took the tablet. Ben had queued up an audio file. Marcus pressed play. Cassandra's voice filled the office. Cold, calculating. Nothing like the warm woman who kissed him goodbye every morning. Marcus listened to the entire conversation, his face draining of color with each passing second. "The child is breaking down nicely." Marcus's hand tightened on the tablet. "Marcus? He's oblivious." His breathing became shallow. "What about the child after we're done?" The tablet shook in his hands. When the recording ended, Marcus sat in silence for a long moment. Then he looked up at Ben, and the driver saw something he'd rarely seen in his friend's eyes. Pure, focused rage. "How long?" Marcus asked quietly. "I've suspected for about 2 weeks, confirmed last night." "Is there more?" "I installed cameras this morning, hidden ones. 4 of them around the house. If she's doing what I think she's doing, we'll have it on video by tonight." Marcus stood, already moving. "I'm going home. Now." "Sir, you need to be careful. If you confront her without more proof—" "I don't give a damn about proof." Marcus's voice cracked like a whip. "That's my daughter." Ben stepped in front of him, blocking the door. "I know, which is why you need to think. If Cassandra realizes we're onto her, she'll destroy evidence. She'll disappear, maybe take Lily with her. We need to be smart." Every instinct in Marcus screamed at him to drive home, throw Cassandra out, grab his daughter, and never let go. But Ben was right. If they moved too fast, Cassandra might slip away. Or worse, she might hurt Lily to cover her tracks. Marcus forced himself to breathe, to think. What do you suggest? Go home like normal. Don't let her know anything is wrong. The cameras are recording. Tomorrow we'll have footage. Then we go to the police with everything, recording, video, whatever else we find. We do this right. Marcus nodded slowly, hating every word but knowing they were true. Fine, but tomorrow we end this. No matter what. The drive home felt like it took hours. Marcus sat in the back of the car, Ben driving, watching the city pass by in a blur. His hands kept clenching into fists. He wanted to hit something, wanted to tear down the sky. His daughter had been suffering, and he'd been too blind, too busy, too goddamn absent to see it. They pulled into the driveway at 7:15, earlier than usual. Marcus had left work early, something he almost never did. He walked to the front door, key in hand, trying to arrange his face into something normal. Inside, he could hear music playing, Cassandra humming along. He pushed the door open. The house smelled like dinner cooking. Cassandra appeared from the kitchen, smiling, wearing an apron. The perfect image of domestic bliss. Marcus, you're home early. What a wonderful surprise. Every word felt like broken glass. Marcus looked at her, this woman he'd let into his home, into his life, and saw a stranger. How had he missed it? How had he not seen the monster wearing a mask? Where's Lily? The question came out harsher than he intended. Cassandra's smile flickered. Upstairs, doing homework. Is everything all right, honey? You look upset. Long day. Marcus forced his face into a neutral expression. I think I'll go say hi to here. Oh, let her finish her work first. Dinner will be ready in the 20 minutes. You can see her then. Marcus started toward the stairs. Cassandra moved to block him, subtle but definite. Marcus, really, she needs to focus. She's been struggling with math lately. Something in her tone set off alarm bells. The way she was positioning herself between him and the stairs. The slight edge of panic in her voice. Marcus's instincts, dulled by months of trust, suddenly roared to life. I'm going to see my daughter. He stepped around her. Cassandra grabbed his arm. Marcus, wait. He pulled free and took the stairs two at a time. Behind him, Cassandra called out, voice rising. She's fine. Marcus, please. He reached Lily's door and pushed it open. The room was empty. Bed made, desk chair empty, no sign of his daughter. Marcus spun around. Cassandra stood at the top of the stairs, her composure cracking. Where is she? I told you she's doing homework. Where is my daughter? The roar echoed through the house. Cassandra flinched. For just a moment, the mask fell away completely, and Marcus saw what lay beneath. Cold calculation, contempt, fear. Then, from somewhere below, a sound, faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. A child crying. Marcus's blood turned to ice. The sound came from downstairs, from the basement. He pushed past Cassandra, ignoring her protests, and ran down the stairs, through the kitchen, to the door that led to the basement. The door was closed, locked. Marcus, stop! Let me explain. He didn't stop, didn't slow down. He hit the door with his shoulder and it burst open, wood splintering. The stairs descended into darkness. Marcus flipped off the light switch. A single bulb flickered on below, casting weak yellow light. He ran down the stairs, heart hammering, following the sound of crying. At the bottom, another door. This one locked too. No time for keys. Marcus stepped back and kicked. Once. Twice. On the third kick, the frame gave way and the door swung open. The smell hit him first. Damp. Mold. Something worse underneath. The room was small, maybe 8 feet by 10. Concrete walls, no windows. A single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, flickering like a dying heartbeat. And in the corner, huddled as far from the door as possible, was Lily. She looked like a ghost. Her clothes were soaked, hair plastered to her face. She shook violently, arms wrapped around a threadbare teddy bear. When the light from the stairwell hit her, she curled tighter, making herself as small as possible. Daddy? The word was barely a whisper. Daddy, is it really you? Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The image of his daughter, broken and terrified in this concrete tomb, burned itself into his brain, with the permanence of a brand. This was his fault, his failure, his blindness. He stepped into the room slowly, hands out, making himself as non-threatening as possible. "It's me, baby. It's Daddy. I'm here." Lily looked up. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt. Her eyes were huge, hollow with fear. "Don't let her hurt me anymore. Please, Daddy. Please don't let her hurt me." Something inside Marcus shattered. He crossed the room and scooped Lily into his arms. She was so cold. Her whole body shook with chills. How long had she been down here? Hours? Days? He held her tight, one hand cradling her head, and ran for the stairs. Cassandra stood at the top, face pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but Marcus's expression stopped her cold. "Get out of my house." His voice was barely human. Cassandra stumbled backward. Marcus pushed past her, still carrying Lily. Ben was in the front hallway, phone already in hand. "Ambulance is on the way, sir. 2 minutes out." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. He carried Lily to the couch and sat down, wrapping her in a throw blanket. She burrowed into his chest, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Daddy didn't know. Daddy should have seen it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Lily didn't respond, just clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had become quicksand. Her small hands gripped his shirt so tight the fabric pulled. In the background, Marcus heard sirens approaching, heard Cassandra trying to explain, her voice rising to a panicked pitch, heard Ben's calm voice cutting through it all, telling her to be quiet, telling her the police were coming. None of it mattered. All that mattered was the tiny broken girl in his arms, his daughter, his failure, his responsibility. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics flooded the house. One of them tried to take Lily from Marcus, but the girl screamed and clung tighter. The paramedic, a woman with kind eyes, backed off. "All right, Dad comes too. Let's just get her in the ambulance." They loaded Lily onto a stretcher, but she wouldn't let go of Marcus's hand. He climbed in after her, sitting beside the stretcher, his hand locked in her small, cold fingers. As the ambulance pulled away, Marcus looked back at the house through the rear window. Police cars were pulling up. Officers were walking Cassandra out in handcuffs. Ben stood on the front steps, watching the ambulance go, his face grim. The mansion that had been Marcus's pride, the symbol of everything he'd built, looked like a mausoleum in the fading light. A beautiful shell that had hidden something rotten at its core. Marcus turned away from it and looked down at Lily. Her eyes were closed now, but tears still leaked from beneath her lids. He brushed them away gently, his own tears falling to mix with hers. "I've got you, baby. Daddy's got you. You're safe now. I promise. I swear on your mother's memory. You're safe." Outside, the city passed by in a blur of lights and shadows. Inside the ambulance, a father held his daughter and prayed that his promise wasn't 3 months too late. The ambulance doors closed. The siren wailed. And somewhere behind them, in a house that had become a prison, the truth was finally, terribly, coming to light. The fluorescent lights in the emergency room burned with a sterile brightness that made everything look washed out and unreal. Marcus sat in a plastic chair that was bolted to the floor, his hands still shaking, watching through a window as doctors and nurses moved around Lily's bed. They'd finally convinced her to let go of his hand, but only after he'd promised he'd be right outside, only after he'd sworn on Eleanor's memory that he wouldn't leave. A doctor emerged 20 minutes later, clipboard in hand, face carefully neutral in that way medical professionals learned. The way that meant the news wasn't good, but they had to deliver it professionally. "Mr. Brennan, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. I've completed the initial examination." Marcus stood so fast the chair scraped against linoleum. "Is she okay?" "Physically, she's stable, but there are concerns." Chen glanced at her clipboard, and Marcus saw her jaw tighten slightly. "Your daughter is suffering from moderate hypothermia. Her core temperature was 35.1 degrees Celsius when she arrived. That's dangerously low." Marcus felt sick. How long would she have had to be in the cold for that to happen? Several hours minimum, possibly longer. Dr. Chen met his eyes. "She's also severely dehydrated and malnourished. Has she been eating regularly?" "I thought so. Her stepmother said she was feeding her." The word stepmother tasted like acid. Dr. Chen made a note. Your daughter has lost approximately 4 kilograms in the last 3 months. For a 7-year-old, that's significant. We're starting IV fluids now. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. 4 kilograms, 9 pounds. How had he not noticed his daughter wasting away? There are also multiple bruises in various stages of healing. Arms, legs, back. The pattern is consistent with being grabbed forcefully, repeatedly. Dr. Chen's professional mask slipped slightly. Mr. Brennan, I'm required by law to report suspected child abuse. The police will need to be involved. They're already involved. The woman who did this is being arrested as we speak. Good. Dr. Chen made another note. Beyond the physical injuries, I'm more concerned about the psychological trauma. Your daughter exhibits signs of acute PTSD. She flinches at sudden movements. She won't make eye contact. When we tried to examine her in a room with the door closed, she had a panic attack. Each word was a hammer blow. Marcus gripped the back of the chair to keep himself upright. What does that mean? Can it be fixed? With time and proper treatment, yes. Children are remarkably resilient, but the fear response she's developed is deeply ingrained. She's learned that enclosed spaces mean pain, that adults mean danger, that speaking up leads to punishment. Dr. Chen softened slightly. The fact that she trusts you is crucial. You're going to be her anchor through this. Whatever she needs, therapy, specialists, money isn't an issue. It's not about money, Mr. Brennan. It's about time. Your daughter needs you present, consistently. She needs to learn that she's safe, and that's going to take daily proof, daily presence. Marcus nodded, the weight of those words settling on his shoulders. He'd failed at presence for 2 years. Now he'd have to learn how to be the father Eleanor had begged him to be. Can I see her? She's asking for you, but Mr. Brennan, prepare yourself. She's very fragile right now. Marcus entered the room quietly. Lily lay in a hospital bed that made her look even smaller than she was. An IV ran into her arm. Monitors beeped softly. She'd been changed into a hospital gown, and someone had washed her face. But her eyes still held that hollow, haunted look. Daddy? Her voice was barely audible. Marcus crossed to her bedside and took her hand gently. I'm here, Lilybug. You came back. The words broke his heart, as if he might have left, as if he'd ever leave again. Of course I came back. I'm not going anywhere. Lily's fingers tightened on his. Miss Cassandra said you didn't want me anymore. She said I was too much trouble, that you were going to send me away. Marcus had to pause, swallowing against the rage that threatened to choke him. When he spoke, his voice was steady. Lily, look at me, look at Daddy. She turned her head slowly, those big eyes meeting his. I will never send you away. Never. You are the most important thing in my life. More important than work. More important than money. More important than anything. Do you understand? She nodded, but he could see the doubt still there. Words wouldn't be enough. He'd have to prove it, day after day, until she believed it. A knock at the door. A police detective entered, middle-aged with tired eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Brennan, I'm Detective James Morrison. I need to ask you and your daughter some questions. The interview was gentle but thorough. Detective Morrison spoke to Lily in a soft voice, asking questions about what had happened. Lily answered in whispers, her hand never leaving Marcus's. Each answer was another knife wound. How often did Miss Cassandra put you in the basement? Almost every day. How long did she leave you there? Sometimes a long time. I couldn't tell. It was dark. Did she ever hurt you? She pulled my hair, and she squeezed my arms really hard, and sometimes she wouldn't let me eat dinner if I cried. By the end, Detective Morrison's jaw was set in a hard line. He closed his notebook and looked at Marcus. We've arrested Cassandra Vale and are bringing in her cousin Ethan for questioning. We'll need to search your home thoroughly. Search whatever you need. Take the whole damn house apart if it helps. Morrison nodded. We'll be in touch. Mr. Brennan, for what it's worth, I have kids. I can't imagine what you're going through. But your daughter is safe now. We'll make sure the people who did this pay. After Morrison left, a nurse came in to check Lily's vitals. The girl tensed when the nurse approached, and Marcus felt her hands squeeze his hard. It's okay, baby. She's just checking to make sure you're getting better. The nurse worked quickly and efficiently, then left. Lily sagged back against the pillows, exhausted by even that small interaction. Marcus pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, his hand still holding hers. "Daddy, are you going to stay?" Lily asked. "All night, right here." "What about work?" "Work can wait. You're more important." She studied his face, searching for lies, finding none. Then slowly she closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep, but even unconscious, her hands stayed locked in his. Marcus sat in the dim hospital room watching his daughter sleep and felt the full weight of his failure crushing down. Eleanor had warned him, had made him promise, and he'd broken that promise so completely that his daughter had suffered for months while he was too busy building his empire to notice. His phone buzzed. Ben calling. Marcus answered quietly, not wanting to wake Lily. "Sir, the police are at the house. They've taken Cassandra and Ethan into custody. They're searching everything." "Good. Ben, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Go through my schedule, cancel everything for the next month. All of it. Meetings, deals, everything. Tell the board I'm taking emergency leave." There was a pause. "Sir, the Cleveland deal closes next week. If you're not there, then it doesn't close. I don't care. My daughter needs me, and that's the only thing that matters now." Another pause. Then Ben's voice came back, warm with approval. "Understood, sir. I'll handle it." Marcus hung up and looked back at Lily. In the low light, she looked so much like Eleanor, it hurt. Same delicate features, same dark hair. Eleanor should have been here. Should have been the one holding their daughter's hand. Should have seen her grow up. "I'm sorry, Elle," Marcus whispered. "I broke my promise. I let you down. I let her down. But I swear to you, on everything I have, I'll make this right. I'll be the father I should have been from the start." The monitors beeped softly. Outside, the hospital carried on with its endless rhythm of crisis and care. Inside room 317, a broken father kept vigil over his broken daughter and prayed for the strength to put the pieces back together. Morning came with weak sunlight filtering through the blinds. Marcus hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily huddled in that basement room, saw the fear in her eyes, heard her whisper, "Don't let her hurt me anymore." Lily stirred around 7, blinking awake slowly. For a moment, confusion crossed her face. Then she saw Marcus sitting beside her, right where he'd been all night, and something that might have been relief flickered in her eyes. "You stayed. I told you I would." A nurse brought breakfast, bland hospital food, but Lily looked at it like she wasn't sure she was allowed to eat. Marcus's heart broke a little more. "Go ahead, baby, you need to eat." Lily picked up the spoon, her hands shaking slightly, and took a small bite of oatmeal. She chewed carefully, watching Marcus as if expecting him to snatch the food away. When he didn't, she took another bite, and another. Dr. Chen came in during breakfast, looking pleased to see Lily eating. "Good morning. How are we feeling today?" Lily shrank back slightly. Marcus squeezed her hand. "It's okay. Dr. Chen is here to help." The examination was quick. Temperature back to normal. Hydration improving. Heart rate good. Dr. Chen made notes, then turned to Marcus. "I'd like to keep her one more day for observation. But physically, she's recovering well. I'm referring you to Dr. Helen Ross, a child psychologist who specializes in trauma. She's excellent." Marcus nodded, memorizing the name. Whatever Lily needed, she'd get. After Dr. Chen left, Detective Morrison returned with a woman in a business suit. She introduced herself as Sarah Chen, though no relation to the doctor. She looked to be in her early 60s, with kind eyes and gray hair. "Mr. Brennan, I apologize for the intrusion. I heard about what happened, and I have information that might be relevant to your case." Marcus frowned. "What kind of information?" Sarah Chen sat down, clasping her hands. "I used to work for Brennan Properties. 10 years ago, I was in the records department. I was let go during a restructuring, but that's not why I'm here." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Do you remember Patricia Vale?" The name rang a faint bell. "Vaguely. She was an accountant, right? Fired for embezzlement." "Yes, and she was Cassandra Vale's mother." The room temperature seemed to drop. Marcus sat up straighter. "What?" "Patricia was fired 10 years ago after an internal audit found discrepancies in several accounts. Money seemed to be missing. She was terminated and the matter was referred to the authorities. She died 5 years ago. Suicide. Marcus's mind raced. Cassandra had never mentioned her mother working for his company, never mentioned any connection to Brennan Properties at all. Why are you telling me this? Sarah Chen reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Because I was there when it happened, and I don't think Patricia was guilty. She opened the envelope and spread several printed emails on the bedside table. These are emails I kept copies of. Against company policy, I know. But something felt wrong about the whole situation, so I saved them. Marcus picked up the top email. It was dated 10 years ago from an external email address to someone in accounting. The subject line read, Patricia Vale Matter. He read the email, and ice formed in his stomach. Frame Patricia Vale for the embezzlement. Make it look convincing. 50,000 for your trouble. When it's done, she'll be desperate. Her daughter will be useful later. V. Marcus looked up sharply. V? I believe it stands for Vincent. Vincent Cross. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Vincent Cross. His former business partner. His former best friend. The man he'd sent to prison 15 years ago for embezzling from their joint company. Oh my God. There's more. Sarah Chen showed him another email. This one is from 2 years ago, after your wife passed away. It's Vincent contacting Cassandra. Marcus read with growing horror. Vincent offering Cassandra money, suggesting she meet Marcus, providing her with information about his schedule, his habits, his daughter, orchestrating the entire relationship. He set this up, all of it, the relationship, moving her into my house, everything. Marcus's hands shook with rage. He's been planning this for years. Detective Morrison, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. Mr. Brennan, tell me about Vincent Cross. Marcus told the story, the partnership, the fraud, the betrayal, the prison sentence. When he finished, Morrison was making notes rapidly. So he has motive for revenge. He lost 5 years to prison, lost his business, lost it everything. And he blames you. But why go after Lily? Why torture a child? Sarah Chen answered softly. Because he knew it would hurt you more than anything else. He wanted to destroy you psychologically before he destroyed you financially. A man can recover from business losses, but watching his child suffer, knowing he failed to protect her, that's a wound that never heals. Marcus looked at Lily, who had been listening with wide eyes. Did Miss Cassandra ever mention a man named Vincent? Lily nodded slowly. She talked to him on the phone sometimes. At night, she always went outside when she called him. What did she say? I couldn't hear much, but once I heard her say, the plan is working, and she was smiling. Morrison stood. I need to bring Vincent Cross in for questioning. Mr. Brennan, do you know where he is? Last I heard, he was running a small investment firm in the city, Cross Financial or something like that. We'll find him. Morrison headed for the door, then paused. Mr. Brennan, this is bigger than we thought. We're looking at conspiracy, fraud, child abuse, and possibly attempted murder. This is going to be a major investigation. I don't care how big it gets. I want everyone involved to pay. Morrison nodded and left. Sarah Chen gathered her emails. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I've been carrying this guilt for 10 years. When I heard what happened to your daughter, I knew I had to speak up. Thank you. You may have just given us the key to everything. After Sarah Chen left, Marcus sat in silence, processing. Vincent Cross, the ghost from his past, had reached out from the grave of their ruined partnership and tried to destroy everything Marcus had left. His company, his reputation, his daughter. Daddy? Lily's small voice broke through his thoughts. Yes, baby? Is this my fault? Did I make Miss Cassandra angry? Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He moved to sit on the edge of her bed, taking both her hands. Lily, listen to me very carefully. None of this is your fault. Not even a little bit. Bad people did bad things, and you were caught in the middle, but you didn't cause it. You didn't deserve it, and it's over now. But I was bad sometimes. I cried. I broke things. You're 7 years old. 7-year-olds cry. They break things. That's normal. That's being a kid. Miss Cassandra was the adult. She was supposed to take care of you. She chose to hurt you instead. That's on her. Not you. Lily studied his face, wanting to believe him. Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes. The programming Cassandra had installed fighting against the truth he was trying to give her. It's going to take time, Marcus said gently, for you to believe that you're not to blame. That's okay. We have all the time in the world. And I'll tell you every single day until you believe it. This wasn't your fault. Lily nodded slowly. Then hesitantly she asked, "Are you angry at me?" "What? No, Lily, no. I'm angry at the people who hurt you. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. But I could never be angry at you. Never." Miss Cassandra said you were angry at me. She said that's why you were never home, because you didn't want to see me. Marcus felt tears burning behind his eyes. That's a lie. I was home so little because I was trying to run away from my own pain. When Mommy died, it hurt so much I didn't know how to deal with it. So I buried myself in work. That was wrong of me. That was me failing you. But it was never because I didn't want to see you. I always wanted to see you. I was just too much of a coward to face my own grief. He wiped at his eyes, not caring that he was crying in front of his daughter. You deserved better than that. You deserved a father who was present, who saw what was happening, who protected you. I failed you, Lily, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. Lily was crying too now, silent tears running down her cheeks. I missed you, Daddy. I missed you so much. I missed you too, baby, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere, not to work, not to meetings, nowhere. My place is here with you. She believed him. He could see it in her eyes, the first crack in the wall Cassandra had built. Marcus gathered her into a gentle hug, careful of the IV, and felt her small arms wrap around his neck. They stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, both broken, both beginning the long process of healing. The rest of the day passed in a blur of doctors and police interviews. Grace Martinez arrived at noon, tears streaming down her face, begging forgiveness. Marcus hugged the older woman and told her he understood. Ethan had threatened her granddaughter. She'd been trapped between two impossible choices. I should have been stronger, Grace sobbed. I should have protected her. He would have hurt Sophia. You were protecting your family. I don't blame you, Grace. Ben came by in the evening with a change of clothes and Marcus's laptop. The board wants to know when you're coming back. Tell them I'm not for a while. They're not happy about the Cleveland deal falling through. Then they can vote me out. I don't care anymore, Ben. I spent 2 years building an empire while my daughter suffered. What's the point of any of it if I lose her? Ben smiled slightly. I think Mrs. Brennan would be proud of you right now. I think she'd be disappointed it took me this long to figure it out. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Marcus stood at the window looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Vincent Cross was probably packing a bag or burning evidence. Cassandra was in a cell. Ethan was being interrogated. The machinery of justice was turning. But Marcus didn't care about any of that right now. Let the police handle them. Let lawyers and judges sort out the punishment. His only concern was the small girl sleeping in the hospital bed behind him. His phone rang. Detective Morrison. We found Vincent Cross. He was at his office destroying documents. We've arrested him. When we searched his office, we found files. Lots of files, plans going back 3 years, evidence of stock manipulation, bribes to your employees, everything. And Cassandra? She's cooperating, trying to make a deal, claiming she was manipulated by Vincent, that she didn't know how bad it would get. Her lawyer is arguing diminished responsibility. Marcus's jaw clenched. She tortured my daughter for 3 months. There's no diminished responsibility for that. We agree. The DA is not inclined to offer any deals, but I wanted you to know she's trying to play victim. She's not the victim. Lily is. We know, and the evidence makes that crystal clear. We have the recordings Ben made. We have medical reports. We have Lily's testimony. And we found something else when we searched your house. What? A journal, Cassandra's journal. She documented everything, every time she punished Lily, every time she locked her in the basement. She even wrote about how it made her feel. It's sick, Mr. Brennan, really sick, but it's also ironclad evidence. Marcus closed his eyes. Cassandra had kept records of her own abuse. some twisted need to document her work. How long until trial? Months, but with this much evidence, I don't think it'll even go to trial. Any lawyer worth their salt will tell them to take a plea. I want them in prison for as long as possible. They will be, I promise you that. After hanging up, Marcus stood at the window a while longer. The city glittered with a million lights, each one representing a life, a story, a struggle. Somewhere out there, other children were suffering in silence. Other parents were too blind or too busy to see. The thought made him sick. He thought about Eleanor again. Wondered what she'd say if she could see him now. Probably something gentle and wise. Something about how the only thing that matters is what you do next. How the past can't be changed, but the future is always uncertain, always full of possibility. Marcus turned away from the window and walked back to Lily's bedside. She slept peacefully now, the monitors showing steady heart rate, normal breathing. The IV dripped slowly. In sleep, with the fear smoothed from her face, she looked like the child she should have been all along. He sat back down in the chair, took her small hand in his, and made a new promise. Not to Eleanor this time. To himself. I will be present. I will be vigilant. I will rebuild the trust I shattered. I will show up every single day and prove that I meant what I said. I will be the father she needs, not the father I've been. And if that means losing the company, losing the money, losing everything I've built, then so be it. Because she is worth more than all of it combined. Outside, the night deepened. The city continued its endless rhythm. Inside room 317, a father kept watch. And for the first time in 2 years, he knew exactly where he needed to be. The hospital discharged Lily 2 days later. Marcus carried her to the car himself, one hand supporting her back, the other holding the small bag of belongings Grace had brought. Lily didn't speak during the drive, just pressed her face against his shoulder and breathed. The mansion was impossible now. Marcus couldn't walk through those halls without seeing ghosts. Lily's fear, Cassandra's lies. The basement door that had hidden so much suffering. Within 48 hours, he'd contacted a realtor. Within a week, the house was listed. He didn't care about the price. He just wanted it gone. Grace helped them pack, only the essentials. Lily's clothes, her books, the teddy bear with one eye. Everything else, every piece of furniture Cassandra had touched, every lamp she'd turned on, every dish she'd used, stayed behind. Let the next owners deal with it, or let it burn. Marcus didn't care. The White House in the suburbs came furnished. Clean slate. No memories, just possibility. The police investigation moved with surprising speed. Ben's recordings were damning. The medical reports were clear. And then they found Cassandra's journal, and the case became ironclad. No defense attorney in the world could explain away a defendant's own written confession. Vincent Cross was arrested at JFK Airport, trying to board a flight to Rio de Janeiro under a false passport. He had $200,000 in cash and a laptop full of incriminating files he hadn't had time to destroy. Arrogant to the end, he'd actually believed he could walk away. Ethan Vale was found hiding at a cousin's house in Boston, practicing the testimony he planned to give, preparing to blame everything on Cassandra and Vincent. But the security footage Ben had installed told a different story. Ethan's hands around Grace's throat. Ethan tearing up Lily's letters. Ethan standing guard while a child suffered. All three accepted plea deals. Their lawyers knew a trial would be a massacre. Better to take the certain sentence than risk a jury seeing those videos, seeing that journal, seeing a 7-year-old girl's medical charts. 3 weeks after that terrible night in the emergency room, Marcus sat in a courtroom that smelled of old wood and broken promises. The building itself was imposing, all stone columns and marble floors, designed to make people feel the weight of justice. Today, that weight pressed down on everyone present. Cassandra Vale sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. The elegant woman who had glided through his life with such confidence now looked diminished. Smaller. Her hair hung limp, no longer carefully styled. Without makeup, her face looked harder, the angles sharper. This was the real Cassandra, Marcus thought, the monster beneath the mask. Beside her sat Ethan Vale, also in orange, his cold eyes scanning the courtroom like he was calculating odds, looking for an angle. Even now, even here, he was scheming. At a separate table sat Vincent Cross, 50 years old, graying at the temples, wearing a suit despite being in custody. He'd always had an ego, always needed to maintain appearances. Prison hadn't broken him of that. He sat with his back straight, chin up, defiant to the end. Marcus sat in the gallery with Ben beside him. Lily wasn't here. He'd refused to bring her. She didn't need to see this, didn't need to face her abusers again. Dr. Helen Ross, the child psychologist they'd started seeing, had agreed wholeheartedly. Lily's healing came first. Justice could happen without forcing her to relive trauma. Grace sat on Marcus's other side, clutching a tissue. She testified earlier in the week, her voice breaking as she described finding Lily's letters, described Ethan's threats, described her own cowardice and the impossible choice she'd faced. The judge had been gentle with her, recognizing that she too had been victimized by Ethan's manipulation. The judge entered and everyone stood. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to the detective, was in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every variety of human cruelty. She sat down, arranged her papers, and looked over her glasses at the defendants. We are here for the sentencing phase in the matter of the state versus Cassandra Vale, Ethan Vale, and Vincent Cross. All three defendants have entered guilty pleas in exchange for agreed-upon sentencing recommendations. However, this court reserves the right to reject those recommendations if they are found to be insufficient. Marcus leaned forward. The plea deals had been bitter to swallow. He'd wanted trials, wanted these people to face full prosecution, to have their crimes displayed for the world to see. But the district attorney had explained the reality. Trials took time. Trials could be lost on technicalities. With guilty pleas, punishment was certain and immediate. For Lily's sake, certainty was better than the possibility of justice delayed or denied. Miss Vale, please stand. Cassandra rose slowly, her lawyer standing beside her. She kept her eyes down, playing the part of the remorseful defendant. The performance continued even here. Judge Morrison looked at her for a long moment before speaking. Miss Vale, you were charged with multiple counts of child abuse, false imprisonment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder. The prosecution has recommended 15 years in exchange for your cooperation in the case against Mr. Cross. Do you understand these charges and the recommended sentence? Yes, Your Honor. Cassandra's voice was small, meek, nothing like the cold precision Marcus had heard on Ben's recording. Before I decide whether to accept this recommendation, I want to make something clear. I have read the entire case file, I have read the medical reports, I have watched the security footage, and I have read your journal, Miss Vale. Every single entry, every detailed description of how you systematically tortured a 7-year-old child. The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter's fingers stilled on the keys. Do you know what struck me most about those journal entries? Judge Morrison continued. You enjoyed it. You documented your own pleasure in causing pain to an innocent child. You wrote, and I quote, "Watching her break is satisfying in ways I didn't expect." Those are your words, Miss Vale, not the words of someone who was coerced or manipulated, not the words of someone who didn't understand what they were doing, the words of someone who took pleasure in cruelty. Cassandra's lawyer spoke up quickly. Your Honor, my client was manipulated by Vincent Cross. She was vulnerable, grieving her mother's death, seeking revenge for what she believed was an injustice. Your client was an adult who made choices. Judge Morrison cut him off. Vincent Cross did not force her to lock a child in a basement for hours at a time in the cold and dark. He did not force her to withhold food. He did not force her to grab that child hard enough to leave bruises in various stages of healing. Those were her choices, her actions, her responsibility. The judge paused, letting her words sink in. However, the law requires me to consider all factors. Miss Vale did cooperate with the investigation. She provided testimony that was crucial in building the case against Mr. Cross. Her information led to the recovery of additional evidence and the identification of other co-conspirators. For that reason, and that reason alone, I am willing to accept a modified version of the recommended sentence. Marcus tensed, gripping the armrest. Cassandra Vale, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in prison without possibility of parole for the first 15 years. Upon release, if you are ever granted parole, you will be permanently barred from any contact with minors. You will be registered as a violent offender. You will undergo mandatory psychological evaluation and treatment. You will spend the next quarter century behind bars, and I sincerely hope you spend every single day thinking about what you did to that child." Cassandra's legs gave out. She collapsed back into her chair, face draining of color. 25 years. She'd be 60 years old when she was eligible for parole. An old woman, her life effectively over. Marcus felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness where anger had burned for weeks. "Ethan Vale, stand." Ethan stood, his face a mask of calculated calm. He was still playing the game, still trying to appear cooperative while giving away nothing that might implicate him further. "Mr. Vale, you were charged as an accessory to child abuse, witness intimidation, assault, threats against Grace Martinez, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The prosecution has recommended 8 years. However, I have significant concerns about your role in all of this." Ethan's lawyer, a sharp-suited woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, spoke up. "Your Honor, my client has fully cooperated with the investigation. He has provided detailed testimony about Vincent Cross's financial schemes, and your client threatened an elderly woman by using her sick granddaughter as leverage," Judge Morrison interrupted. "He ensured Grace Martinez's silence by threatening a 9-year-old child's access to life-saving medical care. That is not the action of someone who was simply following orders, or caught up in something beyond his control. That is calculated, deliberate evil." Judge Morrison shuffled papers, her expression hardening. Furthermore, security footage from the Brennan residence, provided by Mr. Parker, shows Mr. Vale physically assaulting Mrs. Martinez when she attempted to help the victim. He grabbed her by the throat. That elevates this to a violent crime. Ethan's mask slipped slightly. A flicker of worry crossed his face for the first time. "I am rejecting the prosecution's recommendation as insufficient. Ethan Vale, you are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. You will serve a minimum of 12 years before parole eligibility. Additionally, you are permanently barred from any position involving financial management, fiduciary responsibility, or access to vulnerable persons. When you are released, you will register as a violent offender." Ethan's lawyer opened her mouth to object, but the judge cut her off with a sharp look. "This court does not take kindly to people who threaten children, directly or indirectly. Your client is fortunate the sentence isn't longer. Be grateful." 2 down. Marcus watched as both Cassandra and Ethan were led away by bailiffs. Cassandra was crying now, the performance finally dropping as reality set in. Ethan walked with his head high, still defiant, still thinking he was smarter than everyone else, still believing he'd find an angle. He wouldn't. Not where he was going. "Vincent Cross, stand." Vincent rose slowly, deliberately. He looked directly at Marcus as he did, a small smile playing at his lips. Even now, even facing decades in prison, he wanted Marcus to know that he'd caused pain, that he'd succeeded in hurting what Marcus loved most, that in some twisted way, he'd won. Marcus met his eyes without flinching. "You lost," that look said. "You tried to destroy me and you failed. My daughter is alive. She's healing. You failed." Vincent's smile faded slightly. "Mr. Cross, your charges are extensive. Conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, stock manipulation, bribery of corporate officers, and most seriously, conspiracy to commit child abuse and attempted murder. The prosecution has recommended 15 years based on your cooperation and the information you provided about other criminal enterprises." Vincent's lawyer, an expensive-looking man in a $3,000 suit, stood smoothly. "Your Honor, my client has taken full responsibility for his actions. He has provided valuable information about other criminal enterprises that will lead to additional prosecutions. He has expressed genuine remorse for the harm caused." "Has he?" Judge Morrison's voice was sharp as glass. "Because I have read his statement to police. I see no remorse there. I see justification. I see blame directed at Mr. Brennan for events that happened 15 years ago. I see a man who believes he was wronged and therefore had the right to orchestrate the systematic abuse of an innocent child as revenge." Vincent's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "Let me be very clear about something, Mr. Cross. 15 years ago, you stole from your business partner. You committed fraud. You embezzled funds from a company you helped build. Mr. Brennan did not wrong you by reporting your crimes to the authorities. He did his legal and moral duty. You went to prison because you broke the law. That is cause and effect. That is justice working as intended. Judge Morrison leaned forward, her voice dropping but somehow becoming more powerful. What you did in response, however, was not justice. It was not even revenge in any meaningful sense. You systematically planned to destroy a man by torturing his child. You recruited accomplices. You manipulated a vulnerable woman. You caused harm to innocent people who had nothing whatsoever to do with your original grievance. You used a 7-year-old girl as a weapon. She paused, letting the words settle like stones. Your actions were not those of someone seeking justice or even proportional revenge. They were the actions of a sociopath who found a legal justification for his cruelty. You are a danger to society, Mr. Cross, not because you're a thief. We have plenty of those, but because you are willing to harm children to satisfy your ego. Vincent's face had gone red, his composure cracking. That man destroyed my life. My wife died thinking I was a criminal. My son won't speak to me. I lost everything because of him. Bailiff, control the defendant, Judge Morrison said sharply. Vincent continued, his voice rising. He deserves what I did. He deserves worse. You want to talk about justice? Where was justice when I rotted in prison while he built his empire and work I helped create? Where was Mr. Cross? You will be silent or you will be removed from this courtroom, the judge said, her voice cutting through his rant like a blade. Vincent fell silent, breathing hard, glaring at Marcus with pure hatred. Judge Morrison waited a moment before continuing. I am rejecting the prosecution's recommendation entirely. Vincent Cross, you are sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. You will likely spend the rest of your natural life behind bars. And I hope you do, because people like you, Mr. Cross, people who hurt children to satisfy their own egos and grievances, do not deserve to walk free in civilized society. The courtroom erupted in whispers. 30 years. Vincent would be 80 when he got out, if he lived that long. His face went white, then red again. He turned to Marcus, and the mask finally dropped completely. You did this. Vincent's voice cracked. You destroyed me 15 years ago, and now you've destroyed me again. I hope you're satisfied. I hope. Bailiff, remove Mr. Cross from my courtroom immediately. 2 officers grabbed Vincent and hauled him toward the door. He was still shouting, his voice echoing off the stone walls and high ceiling. You took everything from me. Everything. My wife, my son, my life. You deserve what I did. You deserve worse. I hope that little brat never recovers. I hope she... The door slammed shut, cutting off the vile words. The courtroom fell silent. Several people looked shaken. One woman in the gallery was crying. Judge Morrison took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. She suddenly looked very tired, much older than her 60-some years. This court is adjourned. May God have mercy on us all. Outside the courthouse, Marcus stood on the stone steps, breathing in cold autumn air. The sky was overcast, threatening rain. Traffic moved past on the street below. Life continued, indifferent to the justice dispensed inside. Ben stood beside him, silent and solid as always. Grace had already left to visit her granddaughter at the hospital. Sophia's surgery had been successful. She was recovering beautifully. At least something good had come from all of this nightmare. How do you feel, sir? Ben asked after a long moment. Marcus thought about it, really considered the question. Empty. I thought I'd feel better once they were sentenced, once it was officially over. But I just feel empty. Justice doesn't heal the wounds, sir. It just stops the bleeding. The healing comes after. That takes time. Marcus nodded slowly. Ben was right as usual. The courtroom couldn't give him back the months Lily had suffered. Couldn't erase the fear she still carried like a physical weight. Couldn't undo the damage to her trust, her sense of safety, her childhood. It could only ensure the people responsible paid a price, but that price, however steep, couldn't buy back what had been taken. Let's go home, Marcus said. Lily's probably wondering where I am. They drove through the city in silence. Marcus watched the familiar streets pass by, but everything looked different now. Before he'd seen these streets as pathways to success, Routes between business meetings and important deals. Arteries pumping money and power through the city's heart. Now he just saw people, families, individual lives unfolding in their own private dramas. How many other children were suffering behind closed doors right now? How many other parents were too busy or too blind to see? The thought made him sick. The house came into view, not the mansion. That had sold quickly, bought by a tech executive who didn't care about its history. Marcus hoped the new owner was kind, hoped the house might become a home for a happy family, might be redeemed by better memories. This house was different. White clapboard siding, big windows that let in natural light, a yard with actual grass and mature trees. It was smaller, simpler. Further from the office, which meant a longer commute on the 3 days a week Marcus still went in. Exactly what they needed. Marcus pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment, keys in hand, gathering himself. Through the front window, he could see movement inside. Helen Ross was there, having her afternoon session with Lily. 3 times a week, every week, slowly helping his daughter piece together a sense of safety. Progress was slow but steady. Though Ross had warned him it would take time. Years, probably. The fear response Lily had learned was deeply ingrained. But children were resilient, she'd said. Given time and consistent love and safety, they could heal in ways adults often couldn't. He entered quietly, not wanting to disturb the session. Dr. Ross and Lily sat on the living room floor surrounded by art supplies. Lily was working on something with intense concentration, her tongue poking out slightly the way Eleanor's used to when she was focused on a task. Dr. Ross looked up and smiled warmly. Perfect timing. We just finished for today. Lily looked up and Marcus's heart lifted slightly. She smiled. A real smile, not the careful mask she'd worn for so long. Small but genuine. Progress. Daddy, you're home! She didn't run to him yet. Dr. Ross had explained that physical affection still made Lily nervous, that she needed to control the when and how of touch. Forcing hugs or sudden contact could trigger her panic response. She'd initiate contact when she was ready. I'm home, Lilybug. What are you drawing? Dr. Ross said I should draw my safe place, the place where I feel happiest and most protected. She held up the drawing with both hands. It showed this house with its white siding and big windows. In the drawing, a man and a girl stood on the front porch holding hands. The sun shone overhead, bright yellow and warm. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors in the yard. A dog sat on the steps, though they didn't have a dog. Can we get a dog, Daddy? Lily asked. Marcus knelt down to look at the drawing more closely, his throat suddenly tight. This is beautiful, sweetheart. Really beautiful. It's you and me at our home, because this house is my safe place now. The words hit Marcus like a physical force. He had to blink back tears. Yeah? You feel safe here? Lily nodded seriously. You're always here. You never leave without telling me where you're going and when you'll be back. And you always come back exactly when you say you will. So I'm not scared anymore. Not as much. Not as much. Not completely. But less than before, that was progress. That was healing. Dr. Ross stood, gathering her bag and jacket. We made excellent progress today. Lily, I'll see you Friday afternoon, okay? Okay, Dr. Ross, thank you. Thank you for working so hard. You're very brave. After Dr. Ross left, Marcus sat on the couch and Lily climbed up beside him, not touching yet, still maintaining a small buffer of space, but closer than she'd been last week, closer than the week before that. How was the courthouse? Lily asked quietly, not looking at him. Marcus had told her about the sentencing hearing, letting her decide if she wanted to know what happened. She'd said yes. She wanted to know that the people who hurt her couldn't hurt anyone else, couldn't hurt other children. They're going to prison, baby, for a long time. Cassandra got 25 years, Ethan got 15, and Vincent got 30 years. Lily nodded slowly, processing this information with the seriousness of someone much older than 7. So they can't come here? They can't come to our house. They can't come here. They can't hurt you. They can't even write to you or call you. They're gone, Lily. They're out of our lives forever. Good. She paused, picking at a loose thread on the couch cushion. Daddy, do you think Mommy knows about what happened? Marcus thought carefully before answering. This was delicate territory. I think if there's any way for someone who loves us to watch over us from wherever they go after this life, your mommy is watching. And I think she's proud of you. Why would she be proud? I was scared all the time. I couldn't even tell you what was happening. Being scared doesn't make you weak, Lily. You were terrified, but you survived. You got through it. You held on until help came. That takes incredible strength and courage. Your mommy would be so proud of how brave you were. I know I am. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder, a gesture that made Marcus's chest ache with love and relief. Small victories, each one precious. I wish she was here, Lily whispered. Me too, baby. Every single day. Me too. They sat like that for a while as afternoon faded into evening. The house was quiet, but it was a good quiet, a peaceful quiet, not the oppressive silence of the mansion where fear had lived in every corner. Daddy? Lily said eventually. Yes. Thank you for saving me, for not giving up until you found me. Marcus had to close his eyes against the sudden sting of tears. Thank you for holding on until I did, for being strong enough to survive. That night after dinner that Marcus cooked with Lily's help, after homework was finished and checked, after the bath and the careful bedtime routine they had established, Marcus sat in Lily's room while she got ready for bed. She'd picked out this room herself when they moved in. Yellow walls, white curtains that let in morning light. A bookshelf Grace had helped her fill with new books. A desk by the window where she could draw and do homework. Most importantly, no lock on the door. She'd insisted on that. No locks anywhere in the house except the front and back doors. Lily climbed into bed, pulling the covers up. The old teddy bear with one eye sat on the pillow beside her. She'd never let them throw it away even though it was falling apart, stuffing coming out of the seams. It was her connection to Eleanor, to better times. Marcus understood. Story? She asked hopefully. Marcus smiled. Which one tonight? The one about the princess who saved herself. It was a story he'd made up specifically for her about a month ago. A princess who got lost in a dark forest and found her way out through her own courage and cleverness. No prince swooping in to save her. No fairy godmother with a magic wand. Just the princess, her wits, and her determination. But Roas had said stories could be powerful tools for healing, that Lily needed narratives where children were capable and strong, where they could save themselves when adults failed them. Marcus told the story, adding new details each time, making the princess braver and more resourceful with each telling. Tonight, the princess helped a lost wolf cub find its mother, and the wolf's gratitude became important later when the princess needed help crossing a raging river. Lily listened with wide eyes, occasionally asking questions or suggesting plot developments. When the story ended, Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. Good night, Lilybug. Daddy, wait! He paused, hand on the door frame. What is it, sweetheart? Will you sit here just until I fall asleep? Of course, I'll sit right here in this chair for as long as you need. Marcus settled into the comfortable chair he'd placed beside her bed specifically for this purpose. Lily rolled onto her side, facing him, watching him with those big eyes that had seen too much. You'll still be here in the morning, right? You won't leave early for work? I'll be here. I'm always here when you wake up now, remember? That's my most important job. Being your dad, everything else comes second. What about your company? I have very good people running it. Ben helps a lot, and I go to the office 3 half-days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 9 to 3, and only when you're at school. But I'm always home when you get home. Always. That's the rule now. Lily nodded, satisfied by this recitation of their routine. Consistency mattered. Predictability was safety. Okay. Good night, Daddy. Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams. Marcus watched as her breathing slowly evened out, her face relaxing into sleep. The nightmares had decreased significantly over the past few weeks. She still had them, but not every night anymore. Progress. When he was sure she was deeply asleep, he stood carefully and walked to the door. He left it open 6 inches, the way she liked it. Not closed, never closed, but not fully open either. Just enough light from the hallway to keep the darkness at bay. Just enough so she could hear him moving around downstairs and know she wasn't alone. In the kitchen, Marcus found Grace finishing up. She'd started coming by 3 afternoons a week to help with cooking and light housework, though they all knew it was really about family, about connection, about healing together. "She's asleep," Marcus said, grabbing a dish towel to help dry. "Good, she had a productive session with Dr. Ross today, made real progress on the trust exercises." "Yeah." Marcus dried a plate methodically. "Grace, can I ask you something?" She looked at him with concern. "Of course, always." "Do you blame me for not seeing what was happening? For being so absent that Cassandra could torture Lily right under my nose for 3 months?" Grace was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer carefully. Then she put down the dish she was holding and turned to face him directly. "Marcus, I think you've blamed yourself enough for both of us, for all of us. Yes, you should have been more present. Yes, you should have noticed the signs. But Cassandra was extraordinarily clever and manipulative. She planned everything carefully. She was an actress playing a role, and she played it perfectly." Grace paused, choosing her words. "And you were grieving. You were in terrible pain after losing Eleanor. People in that kind of pain don't always see clearly. They make mistakes. They miss things. That's human. That's normal. That doesn't excuse it. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. And more importantly, you've spent every day since that night proving that you've learned from it. You've changed your entire life. You've put Lily first in every single decision. You've done the hard work of becoming the father she needs. That's what matters now. Not what you failed to do before, but what you're doing every single day now." Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the absolution even if he didn't fully believe he deserved it yet. Maybe someday he would. "How's Sophia doing?" he asked, changing the subject. Grace's face lit up immediately. "Wonderful. The surgery was a complete success. She'll need to take it easy for a few more months, but Dr. Rodriguez says she should be able to live a completely normal life, run, play soccer, everything a 9-year-old should do." "I'm so glad." Marcus had paid for the entire surgery, every penny, and refused to let Grace pay him back. It wasn't charity. It was family, taking care of family. It was what you did. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Grace left at 8, heading home to her daughter and granddaughter. Marcus locked the door behind her, checked all the windows, made sure the security system was armed, and turned off the downstairs lights. Upstairs, he paused outside Lily's room. The door was still open 6 inches exactly. He could hear her breathing, steady and peaceful. He desperately wanted to go in and check on her, to reassure himself she was really okay. But Dr. Ross had advised against hovering. Lily needed to feel safe enough to sleep alone, needed to know that the monsters weren't coming back, that she could trust her environment. In his own bedroom, Marcus got ready for bed with the methodical routine he'd developed. Brush teeth, set alarm, check phone one last time for any urgent messages. Charge everything. Simple, ordinary tasks that grounded him in the present moment. He climbed into bed and lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. Beside him, Eleanor's side of the bed was empty. Would always be empty, but her presence lingered in other ways. In Lily's smile, in the photographs on the walls, in the memories that were finally becoming sweet instead of only painful, in the strength he somehow found each day to keep going, to keep trying, to keep being present. "I'm doing better, Elle," Marcus whispered to the darkness. "I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes, but I'm trying. I'm really trying to be the father you asked me to be, the father she needs. I hope that's enough." He closed his eyes, and for the first time and longer than he could remember, sleep came easily. 6 months passed in a blur of small victories and gradual healing. Lily started at a new school, one where nobody knew her story. She made friends, most notably a girl named Emma with red hair and freckles who lived 2 blocks away. They played together every weekend, building elaborate fairy houses in the backyard and putting on shows for the adults. Marcus kept his promise religiously, home by 3:30 every single day. No late nights at the office, no business trips, no exceptions. The board had grumbled at first, threatening to replace him. Marcus had told them to go ahead, that he'd step down as CEO if they wanted and just remain on the board. His daughter came first. Period. They'd back down. The company was still profitable under Ben's day-to-day management, still growing. Marcus handled strategy and major decisions, but the operational details he delegated. It worked better than he'd expected. Dr. Ross continued the sessions, though they dropped to once a week now. Lily's nightmares had decreased from nearly every night to maybe once or twice a week. She could handle closed doors now, though she still preferred them open. She didn't flinch when people touched her anymore, though she remained particular about who she allowed close. She smiled more, laughed more, seemed lighter somehow, as if a great weight was gradually lifting. The biggest change came on a Saturday morning in early spring. Marcus was in the kitchen making pancakes, badly as usual, when Lily came downstairs in her pajamas. Without hesitation, without preamble, she walked straight to him and hugged him from behind, wrapping her small arms around his waist. Marcus froze completely, spatula in hand, afraid to move and break the spell. Physical affection had to come from Lily, always from her first. Dr. Ross had been crystal clear about that. Never force it. Let her decide when she's ready. Control was crucial for her sense of safety. "Good morning, Daddy," Lily said, her voice muffled against his back. Marcus carefully set down the spatula and turned around slowly. Lily looked up at him with a real smile, not the careful one she'd worn for so long. A genuine, 7-year-old, happy to be alive smile. "Good morning, Lilybug. You're up early for a Saturday. I wanted to help make breakfast, and I had a good dream about Mommy, so I didn't want to stay in bed." Marcus's throat tightened. "Yeah, what was the dream?" "She was in a garden with lots of flowers. She told me she's proud of both of us, and that we're going to be okay." Lily looked thoughtful. "It felt real, Daddy, like she was really there." "Maybe she was, in her way. I like to think she checks on us sometimes." They cooked together, Lily standing on her step stool to reach the counter, Marcus teaching her how to flip pancakes without launching them across the kitchen. They laughed when one landed on the floor anyway. Lily didn't flinch at the noise or apologize frantically for the mess, just laughed and said they'd give that one to the birds outside. After breakfast, while Lily was drawing in the living room, Marcus thought back to 6 months ago. So much had changed, but there was one more thing he needed to do, one more promise to keep. 3 months later, Marcus stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. 500 people filled the room. Donors, advocates, survivors, press, all gathered for the inaugural gala of the Eleanor's Light Foundation. "When my wife Eleanor was dying," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the emotion, "she made me promise to protect our daughter. I failed that promise, spectacularly. For 3 months I was blind while my child suffered." The room was silent. Lily sat in the front row between Grace and Ben, wearing a yellow dress she'd picked out herself. She was drawing in a sketchbook, but she looked up when he said her name. "But Lily taught me something," Marcus continued. "She taught me that failure isn't final, that healing is possible, that it's never too late to become the person you should have been all along." He gestured to the screen behind him. Numbers appeared. Eleanor's Light Foundation. Year 1 results. 512 children removed from abusive situations. 1,247 families provided with counseling services. $5.2 million raised. 24/7. Hotline. 47,893 calls answered. 0 children turned away. "These numbers represent lives," Marcus said. "Real children who were suffering in silence, who are safe now because someone saw the signs, because someone spoke up, because someone cared enough to act." He looked at Lily. She set down her sketchbook and walked to the stage. Marcus met her halfway, taking her hand. Together, they faced the audience. "My daughter wants to say something." Lily stepped to the microphone. Her voice was small but clear. "If you're scared, tell someone. Keep telling until someone listens. Someone will listen." My daddy listened, eventually. The room erupted in applause. Some people were crying. Grace dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Ben stood, clapping hard enough to hurt his hands. That night, after the gala, after the speeches and the donations and the photographs, Marcus and Lily drove home in comfortable silence. The White House waited for them, lights on, welcoming. "Daddy," Lily asked as they pulled into the driveway. "Yes, baby?" "I'm glad we did this. Mommy would be proud." "Yeah, Marcus said, his throat tight. "She would be." That had been 3 months ago. Now, on this Saturday morning, making pancakes with his daughter who was learning to laugh again, Marcus's phone rang. Detective Morrison. Mr. Brennan just wanted to update you. Vincent Cross filed an appeal of his sentence. It was denied. The conviction and sentence both stand. Good. Thank you for letting me know. There's one other thing. He tried to send you a letter. We intercepted it per the restraining order, but I wanted you to know he made the attempt. What did it say? More of the same. Blame justification, claims that he's the real victim and you're the villain. Do you want us to forward it to you? Marcus thought for maybe half a second. No, burn it. I don't care what he has to say. He's part of my past, not my future. Understood. Oh, and Cassandra Vale's lawyer reached out through the DA's office. She wants to know if you'd be willing to allow her to write a letter of apology to Lily. Absolutely not. Lily never wants to hear from her again. That's final and non-negotiable. I'll make sure they understand. Take care, Mr. Brennan. After hanging up, Marcus stood at the kitchen window looking out at the backyard. Spring was arriving slowly. The trees were budding, flowers pushing up through the soil, new life after a long, hard winter. A metaphor so obvious it was almost trite, but true nonetheless. Daddy, come see what I drew. Marcus walked into the living room. Lily sat on the floor, surrounded by crayons and paper, a rainbow of colors scattered around her. She held up her latest creation with both hands, proud. The drawing showed three people, a man, a girl, and a woman with angel wings floating above them in a blue sky. The sun shone bright yellow. Flowers bloomed in every impossible color. At the bottom, in Lily's careful handwriting, were the words, "My family." That's beautiful, sweetheart. Really beautiful. The angel is Mommy. Dr. Ross says it's okay to remember her and include her. That she's still part of our family, even though she's in heaven watching over us. Dr. Ross is absolutely right about that. Lily studied the drawing, then looked up at Marcus with serious eyes. Are we going to be okay, Daddy? Really okay? It was such a simple question. Such a profound question. Marcus knelt down beside her on the floor, looking at the drawing together, at the bright sun and impossible flowers, an angel mother watching over them. Yeah, Lilybug, we're going to be okay. It might take more time. There will probably still be some bad days mixed in with the good ones. But we're going to be okay. We're going to be better than okay. Promise? I promise on Mommy's memory and on my love for you, we're going to be okay. Lily nodded satisfied and went back to her drawing, adding more flowers, more sunshine, more bright, impossible colors that only existed in the imagination of children who were learning to hope again. Marcus stayed beside her, watching her work, feeling something very much like hope blooming in his own chest. They'd been through hell. They'd been broken and battered and nearly destroyed. But they were still here, still together, still fighting, still healing, one day at a time. And that, Marcus thought, was its own kind of victory. Maybe the most important kind. Outside, spring continued its patient arrival. The world turned, life went on. Inside a white house with yellow curtains and no locks on the bedroom doors, a father and daughter drew pictures of brighter days. And for the first time in a very long time, those brighter days felt not just possible, but probable, real, within reach. The sun set on another ordinary day. Marcus made dinner with Lily's help. She set the table carefully, taking pride in getting everything just right. They ate together, talking about her day, about Emma's upcoming birthday party, about the chapter book they were reading together at bedtime, about a girl who solved mysteries. After dinner, after homework, after the bath and teeth brushing, and all the small rituals that made up their evenings, Marcus sat in the chair beside Lily's bed and watched her drift off to sleep. Daddy, she murmured, already half asleep. Yes, baby? I love you. 3 simple words, but they held the weight of healing, the promise of tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that. The proof that love could survive even the darkest nights in the deepest wounds. I love you too, Lily. More than all the stars in the sky. More than all the words in all the books. More than anything in this whole wide world. She smiled without opening her eyes and fell asleep. Marcus sat there longer than necessary, watching her breathe, watching her dream, watching over her the way he should have all along, the way he would for the rest of his life. Then he stood quietly, left the door open exactly 6 inches, and went downstairs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles. The healing wasn't finished, probably would never be completely finished. But they had each other. They had time. They had hope. They had love. And for now, for tonight, for this moment, that was enough. That was everything. Marcus turned off the lights and climbed the stairs to bed. Behind him, the house settled into peaceful silence. Above, a father and daughter slept under one roof, both safe, both healing, both learning what it meant to be family again. Outside, the stars came out one by one, bright points of light in the darkness. And if you looked up, if you really looked, you could almost believe they were shining just a little bit brighter tonight. Watching, bearing witness, approving. Eleanor would have been proud of both of them for surviving, for healing, for choosing love over fear, for holding on when it would have been so much easier to let go. The story could have ended in darkness and tragedy, but this story, their story, ended differently. It ended with hope, with healing, with a father and daughter who survived the worst and found their way back to each other. And that, in the end, was the only ending that mattered.